single mother janitor blew soap bubbles to calm a crying girl. She wasn't looking for attention. She thought no one was watching, but someone was. The girl's millionaire father saw everything, in silence. And what he witnessed that day would change 3 lives forever. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. There were no cameras, no audience, no reward. She didn't even know who the little girl was. All she saw was pain, in a place where there should have been joy. A child crying in the hallway, too hurt to speak. So the janitor did what a mother would do. She sat beside her, spoke gently, and pulled out a tiny bottle of soap bubbles from her pocket. In seconds, laughter replaced tears. Not loud, not wild, just calm. But that moment didn't disappear, because someone else had been watching. A man used to numbers, deals, and power, who suddenly saw something money had never given him. This isn't just a story about bubbles. It's about a woman in a uniform no one notices, a girl with a heart still healing, and a father who finally saw what really matters. Long before the first student yawns out of bed, Maya's day has already begun. The sun hasn't even touched the sky, but her uniform is on, keys in hand, and her feet are moving. She walks the quiet halls of a school that shines not because it's new, but because someone like her makes it look that way. She's not on the morning announcements. No one leaves apples on her desk. Yet everything she does matters more than they know. It's easy to overlook someone whose name isn't on the front door. But try skipping a week without her, and the cracks start to show. She knows this, but never complains. She just works silently, faithfully. Being a janitor isn't just about cleaning floors. It's about carrying the weight of what others leave behind. Gum under desks, tears in bathrooms, forgotten gloves on benches. And still, Maya does it with dignity. There's a kind of quiet power in doing the work no one wants to do, and doing it well. She often thinks about how society respects titles, not effort. Yet effort is what keeps the world from falling apart. You don't need a corner office to have character. You don't need a degree to teach values. Sometimes pushing a mop teaches more about integrity than any lecture hall ever could. Maya is a single mother. That alone says a lot. But being a single mom and a janitor in a wealthy school, that says even more. It means she carries double loads, wears double armor, and still finds a way to show up with grace. Her son, Elijah, is her reason for everything. Every bottle she recycles, every lunch she skips to stretch the groceries. It's all for him. People walk past her like she's part of the wall, but she walks with purpose. Because she's not invisible to the one person that matters most, her child. And for Maya, that's enough to keep going. What makes her story special isn't just her job. It's how she wears it. Maya never lets shame sit on her shoulders. She believes in honest work, and she knows that kindness doesn't come with a salary. There's something deeply human about her presence. Students don't notice it, but teachers sense it. A softness when she wipes the whiteboards, a gentleness when she picks up dropped books. She may be seen as just the janitor, but in the spaces where compassion counts, she's already a millionaire. The currency, heart. What the students don't realize is that Maya sees everything. The quiet ones, the bullies, the notes passed between lockers. She understands crisis before it becomes visible. A girl biting her nails at the fountain. A boy crying near the lockers after practice. Maya has lived enough life to know when something's off, even if no one else is paying attention. And she never intervenes unless she has to. She respects people's space. But when pain shows up without invitation, so does she. There's a kind of humility that comes from being ignored daily and still choosing to care. Maya learned that from her mother, who cleaned hospitals for 30 years. "You don't work for applause," she used to say. "You work because people need what you do, even if they never say thank you." That mindset runs deep in Maya's blood. She believes in showing up, in keeping promises, in cleaning the messes no one wants to admit they made. And she does it all with quiet pride, because humility doesn't mean shrinking. It means standing tall with no spotlight. If you've ever met someone like Maya, you know the type. They'll hold the door when your hands are full, offer tissues when they see you cry. They do small things that feel enormous when life is hard. It's easy to overlook people like her in a world obsessed with status. But those are the people who hold communities together, who bring dignity back to jobs stripped of respect. And one of the greatest life lessons is this: never underestimate someone just because their paycheck is small. Sometimes the smallest salaries come with the richest souls. In schools like this, fancy, polished, full of privilege, people like Maya blend into the background. Parents rush past her during drop-offs. Teachers barely nod. The headmaster? She's never spoken directly to him, but she doesn't take it personally. She's not there for recognition. She's there because the work is needed. And even though no one sees it, she knows she's part of what makes the place run. Like plumbing in a house, you never notice it until it breaks. And Maya never lets it break. But then again, not everything stays unseen forever. Maya's morning started heavy. Not with the weight of the mop she pushed, but with the invisible burdens that clung to her like a second skin. Her son Elijah had a fever that refused to break, keeping her awake for countless hours while she sat beside his small bed, wiping sweat from his brow. The worry wasn't just about the sickness, but about the money she didn't have for the doctor's visit. The rent notice still sat on the kitchen table, its bold letters mocking her quiet prayers for a miracle. She rubbed her aching back, the result of years spent carrying both physical and emotional weight, and prepared herself for the day ahead. Despite the exhaustion in her bones, Maya knew she had to show up, both for Elijah and for the school she cleaned day after day. She pulled on her worn uniform, its fabric soft from too many washes, and kissed her son goodbye with a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. "I'll be back soon." The early morning light filtered through the window as she stepped outside, hoping her son would rest while she worked. Bills remained unpaid. The fridge was nearly empty, but the smallest acts of kindness she gave each day were what kept her spirit alive. Walking the polished floors of the private school, Maya moved with practiced grace, her feet aching from worn-out shoes and muscles tired beyond words. Her hands gripped the mop handle as she scanned the hallways, greeting children with gentle smiles that masked the storm inside her. Each smile was a small battle won against the fatigue and despair that threatened to swallow her whole. The contrast was sharp, children laughing, running, full of life, while she carried the weight of unseen struggles and silent prayers. Teachers nodded at her with polite distance, rarely making eye contact, and the principal's office buzzed with plans and meetings that felt galaxies away from her reality. Maya had long grown used to being invisible in this polished world. It was easier that way, less chance for judgment, less chance for pity. But invisibility came at a price. It meant carrying pain alone. It meant hoping that small acts of kindness could ripple beyond the confines of a janitor's uniform. As she pushed her cart near the library, something caught her ear, a soft sound breaking through the usual hum of the school. Quiet sobs, barely audible, came from behind the tall shelves lined with books. She stopped, the mop handle tightening in her grasp, heart tightening too. The noise was fragile, like a whispered secret, too small for most to notice but impossible for her to ignore. Maya's years of compassion sharpened her senses. She knew when someone was hurting. The sobs led her to a young girl sitting alone on the cold tile floor, knees drawn up and face buried in her arms. Her hair was tangled, cheeks streaked with tears, and her small body trembled with quiet desperation. There was no teacher nearby, no friend to offer comfort. Maya's heart clenched, not just because of the girl's pain, but because she knew what it felt like to be unseen in a crowded room. Without a word, Maya knelt beside her, offering the only solace she had, a steady presence. Her body still ached from years of work, and her mind was crowded with worries about bills and her sick son. Yet in that moment, nothing else mattered. She understood that kindness doesn't always come with answers, sometimes just with being there when the world seems too heavy. Maya didn't ask questions or try to fix things too quickly. Instead, she offered silence and space, two things rare in a world that often demands noise and solutions. It was in that quiet hallway, away from the glare of spotlight and the rush of schedules, that Maya's true work began. Not the work on floors or desks, but the work of healing unseen wounds with simple gestures. She reached into her cart and pulled out a small bottle of soap bubbles, something she always carried for her son to brighten hard days. The choice wasn't planned or scripted. It was pure instinct, a spark of light in the shadows of crisis. The girl looked up, her tear-streaked face flickering with surprise and something like hope. Maya blew bubbles into the stale air, watching as they floated gently, catching the light before bursting softly. The sound of quiet laughter began to replace the sobs. In that fragile moment, Maya's heavy morning shifted. It was a reminder that sometimes, even the smallest acts of compassion can open a door when everything else feels closed. The girl sat quietly on the cold, hard floor of the school hallway, hugging her knees tightly to her chest as if trying to make herself smaller, invisible to the world around her. Her hair was tangled and messy, strands falling loosely over her flushed cheeks that still bore the dampness of fresh tears. She wasn't crying loudly, just soft sobs that seemed to whisper her sadness into the empty space. There wasn't a single teacher nearby to notice or intervene, and the bustling crowd of students seemed to pass right by without a second glance. She was alone in the middle of a crowd, a paradox of loneliness in a place meant for learning and growth. Maya, pushing her cleaning cart along the hallway, spotted the girl almost by accident. Something about the way she sat, so withdrawn and fragile, stopped her in her tracks. In that moment, all the worries about bills, her son's fever, and the long day ahead faded to the background. The janitor's eyes, trained by years of watching for unspoken pain, recognized the silent plea. Without a second thought, Maya knelt down beside her. It wasn't a grand gesture or a heroic act. It was just human, natural, a quiet reaching out to someone in need of kindness. The girl flinched at first, startled by the sudden presence. Her eyes, red-rimmed and wide, searched Maya's face for any sign of judgment or disappointment, but found only warmth and understanding. Maya didn't say anything at first. She just offered her company. Sometimes words aren't necessary. Presence alone can be a balm. She understood that pain, especially the kind no one wants to talk about, needs to be met gently, without pressure or questions. The girl's body slowly relaxed, a sign that Maya's compassion was reaching through the walls she'd built around herself. It wasn't unusual for Maya to witness moments like this in her job. She'd seen children wrestling with fears, loneliness, and confusion, things that textbooks never teach and school counselors sometimes overlook. What made this moment stand out was the rawness, the palpable need for comfort from someone who wasn't a teacher or a parent. It reminded Maya of the power that kindness holds when it's free of expectation. It wasn't about fixing or explaining, but about simply being there when the world felt too much. As Maya reached into her pocket for a small hand sanitizer, she noticed the girl's trembling hands and dirty nails, signs of a child carrying more than just momentary sadness. Maya's heart ached with empathy. She thought about the many unseen struggles that children like this one face every day, often hidden behind smiles or silence. The janitor's uniform might be modest, but the character it represented was rich with dignity, compassion, and a quiet strength that could turn moments of crisis into moments of hope. The hallway, usually noisy and chaotic, felt oddly still around them. Time seemed to slow down as Maya gently brushed a strand of hair from the girl's face. No judgment, no rush, just acceptance. This simple act said more than any lecture could. It told the girl she was seen, respected, and cared for, things money can't buy, even in the wealthiest schools. And for Maya, it was a reminder that her role went far beyond cleaning floors. She was a guardian of humanity in small, meaningful ways. The girl finally whispered her name, Lily. It was fragile, like a secret shared only with the janitor who chose to kneel beside her. Maya's heart tightened, knowing names carry stories, histories, and wounds. There were no quick fixes here, but the connection was the first step toward healing. Lily's story, hidden behind that downcast gaze, was waiting to be told, and Maya felt a quiet determination to be part of that journey, even if it was just by blowing bubbles and listening. For a fleeting moment, Maya's own troubles melted away. The weight of unpaid bills and sick children was still there, but they were balanced by the weight of this unexpected connection. It reminded her that even in the hardest times, kindness finds a way to reach across divides and break through walls of silence. This chance encounter was more than a random moment. It was the beginning of a transformation neither of them expected, one that would ripple far beyond that lonely hallway. And as Maya stayed there, kneeling beside Lily, the silence was filled not with loneliness, but with something new, a fragile thread of hope weaving between two souls who knew what it meant to be unseen. Maya didn't rush to fill the silence with questions or advice. She knew that sometimes the weight of words could feel heavier than the pain itself. The girl sitting on the floor needed space, not interrogation. In moments like these, compassion isn't about fixing problems with speeches or promises. It's about offering comfort in ways that speak louder than words. Maya understood this deeply. Her life had taught her that sometimes silence and presence were the greatest gifts you could give someone in crisis. So she stayed still, letting the quiet stretch between them. Instead of talking, Maya reached slowly into her cleaning cart. Hidden beneath mops and sprays was a small bottle of soap bubbles, a simple treasure she always kept for her son Elijah. It was a secret lifeline for hard days, a way to bring lightness to moments weighed down by struggle. She twisted the cap open gently, careful not to break the fragile hope it represented. For Maya, bubbles weren't just child's play. They were a tool of transformation, an invitation to joy when the world seemed full of despair. The girl's eyes remained fixed on the floor at first, red and puffy from crying. But then, as Maya lifted the bubble wand and blew a stream of shimmering orbs into the air, something shifted. The bubbles floated upward like tiny, translucent miracles. Fragile, beautiful, and fleeting, they caught the light, dancing gently on invisible currents. The girl's gaze lifted hesitantly, curiosity breaking through her sadness like the first rays of sun after a storm. It was a moment of surprise and honesty, a silent invitation to feel something lighter, something new. That small smile, the one that finally touched the girl's lips, was a quiet revolution. It wasn't forced or rehearsed. It was the purest expression of relief, the kind of smile that can only come when someone finally feels seen and safe, even if just for a moment. Maya recognized that smile immediately. It reminded her of her son's grin on his better days. It was a spark of hope, a sign that the heavy clouds might part if given time and kindness. That smile was more than just a curve on a face. It was a lesson in dignity. In that hallway, away from judgment and expectation, bubbles became a language all their own. They spoke of freedom, of innocence reclaimed. They carried a message that words sometimes fail to deliver, that it's okay to breathe, to play, to feel joy even in the midst of crisis. Maya's choice to share this simple joy was an act of humility and respect, recognizing that healing isn't linear and that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the deepest meaning. For both of them, it was a moment of transformation without pretense. Maya watched as the girl reached out, her trembling fingers brushing the shimmering bubbles. Each burst sent a tiny sparkle scattering through the air, like fragments of broken pain dissolving into light. This unspoken exchange between them was powerful. No need for explanations or confessions. Compassion was happening quietly, invisibly, but profoundly. It was a reminder that character shows itself not in grand acts, but in moments like these, when someone chooses to care without expectation, to give without asking for anything in return. For a moment, the chaos of Maya's life, the bills, the sleepless nights, the exhaustion, felt distant. This simple act, born from love for her own son, was now a gift to a stranger in need. She thought about how kindness, like bubbles, can float on even the heaviest days, and how respect for another's pain can transform both giver and receiver. It was a secret shared in plain sight, unnoticed by most, but deeply felt by those who understood what it meant to be invisible yet valuable. The bubbles lingered, fragile and bright, carrying with them the promise of a second chance. Not just for the girl, but for Maya too. It was a reminder that integrity isn't about perfection, but about showing up, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching. And as the girl's smile grew steadier, Maya knew this was more than a fleeting moment. It was the start of a quiet revolution in a place where kindness often went unseen. In that hallway, where no one expected much, two hearts connected through the simplest language, bubbles. And sometimes that's all it takes to begin changing a life. The soft giggle that escaped from the girl felt like a miracle in that quiet hallway. It was the first real laugh she'd managed all day, a small break from the heavy sadness that had settled over her like a thick fog. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she watched the bubbles drift and dance through the air, delicate spheres catching the light before bursting gently. For those few moments, she forgot about her troubles and simply reached out with trembling hands, chasing the bubbles as if they held all the hope she needed. It was a fragile happiness, but powerful enough to make the world stand still. As the girl moved, her laughter grew a little louder and her smile a bit wider. Maya stayed close, watching the transformation unfold with a mix of awe and quiet joy. It was amazing how something so simple, a handful of bubbles, could crack the shell around a child's heart. The usual noise of the school faded into the background, and the hallway became a calm oasis, a pause in the chaos of life. Time seemed to stretch, making space for something precious. Healing, hope, and human connection. Yet, the stillness in the hallway was not absolute. Unbeknownst to Maya and the girl, they weren't truly alone. At the far end, a figure stood watching quietly, hidden in the shadows but drawn to the moment's tenderness. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit and tie, his face serious and unreadable at first glance. But as he observed the simple joy unfolding before him, a subtle change crept into his expression. The hardness softened, the distance closed just a little. His eyes reflected something long forgotten. Maybe recognition, maybe regret, or perhaps the stirrings of hope. This man's presence was a secret the hallway held tightly, unnoticed by the bustling students and busy teachers. He remained silent, watching the bubbles float and the girl laugh, as if seeing something he hadn't seen in years. The power of that small scene touched a place deep inside him, reminding him of values that money couldn't buy: kindness, humility, and the quiet strength found in moments of compassion. It was a shock to his carefully guarded world. For the girl, the moment was pure and untainted, a rare glimpse of joy in a day shadowed by loneliness and confusion. For Maya, it was another proof that her job, though often overlooked, held incredible meaning. And for the silent watcher, it was a turning point, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts reveal the biggest truths. The bubbles, the laughter, the connection. They all carried an unseen weight, one that would soon ripple beyond the hallway walls. In a place defined by status and appearances, this unexpected pause held a lesson about what really matters. It wasn't about power or wealth, but about the integrity and character that show when no one's watching. And sometimes, the most meaningful moments happen when people least expect it, when they stop long enough to see beyond the surface. That quiet hallway became a stage for a heartwarming transformation in the making. The world outside the hallway carried on, busy and loud, but inside, everything felt suspended, as if time itself honored the moment. The girl's laughter echoed softly, a sound both fragile and resilient, reminding anyone listening that even in crisis, there's room for hope. Maya's presence grounded the scene in realness, proof that kindness doesn't require grand gestures, just genuine care. The bubbles were more than soap and air. They were symbols of change. And still, the man watched, the father, the billionaire, whose world rarely intersected with the lives around him. Here, in the quiet corner of the school, he saw a glimpse of something invisible to most: the heart behind the janitor's kindness, the soul behind the girl's smile. It was a moment that would challenge his assumptions and, perhaps, change the course of their lives forever. But none of them knew it yet. The hallway stilled, but a story was just beginning. Unseen by Maya, standing quietly at the far end of the hallway, was a tall man whose presence seemed almost out of place amid the school's busy routine. He wore a sharp suit and a perfectly knotted tie, symbols of a life far removed from mops and cleaning carts. His face was stern and unreadable, like a mask forged by years of hard decisions and unyielding responsibility. Yet, in this moment, he wasn't thinking about business deals or the weight of his empire. He was simply watching, silent and still. For several minutes, The man observed the simple scene unfolding before him. A janitor kneeling beside a young girl, bubbles floating gently between them. No words passed his lips. No expressions betrayed what he felt inside. But behind that stern exterior, something unexpected was stirring. A crack in the armor he wore so carefully. The softness began small, almost imperceptible, like the first thaw of winter ice in early spring. He remembered a time when laughter came easier, when joy wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by moments like this, fragile, fleeting, yet powerful. Watching the girl's smile bloom as she chased bubbles brought back memories he hadn't visited in years. He thought about his own child, about the distance that had grown between them. For the first time in a long while, his face softened, betraying the warmth he usually kept hidden from the world. This man, a billionaire by title and fortune, had spent much of his life focused on building success, often at the cost of personal connections. Yet here, in this quiet school hallway, the unspoken truth settled heavily in his chest. Money and power can never replace the simple acts of kindness and compassion he was witnessing. Maya's humble gesture held more value than any boardroom victory. It challenged his understanding of what truly matters. The silence in that hallway became a language itself, one spoken through glances and the gentle dance of bubbles. The man's eyes softened further as he recognized the dignity in Maya's actions. The integrity of a woman who gave without expecting anything in return. It was a reminder that character isn't forged in riches or titles, but in small, unseen moments of honesty and care. His heart, once guarded and distant, began to open. In this rare moment of vulnerability, the man felt a stirring of hope, a possibility that connection and redemption were still within reach. The girl's laughter was a quiet call to reconsider what he had missed. The chance to be present, to show respect, and to honor values deeper than wealth. He realized that he had been an unseen witness to something far more valuable than any deal or acquisition. Though he remained silent, his softened expression spoke volumes. It was as if the walls he had built around himself were beginning to crumble, brick by brick, replaced by something warmer and more human. The weight of his power seemed lighter when confronted with the raw humanity before him. The moment planted a seed of transformation that neither he nor Maya could yet fully understand. As the janitor continued to blow bubbles and the girl's laughter filled the air, the silent witness stayed rooted, watching with a heart that was quietly changing. He was learning that sometimes, the most important lessons come from places you least expect. From a janitor's kindness, a child's smile, and the pause between words. In that hallway, beneath the surface of wealth and status, a new story was beginning to unfold. The girl's name was Lily, a name soft and simple, but carrying a world of unspoken pain. She was new to the school, the kind of child who stayed in the background, quiet, observant, but rarely noticed. Most days, she arrived in a sleek black car, driven by a quiet man who never spoke much. There was no laughter or chatter from family members. No parents waving goodbye at the school gate. Lily was a mystery to many, a shadow passing through the bright halls but never fully seen. Maya, like others, knew little about her story until now. Lily had grown used to silence, not just at school but at home too. Since her mother's passing, the house had fallen into a heavy quiet. Words that once filled the rooms with warmth and laughter had disappeared. She stopped talking, retreating into herself like a fragile flower closing against a cold wind. The loss left a wound too deep for easy healing, and though many tried to reach her, therapists, tutors, even well-meaning relatives, nothing seemed to break through the silence. Maya's simple kindness was something different, something Lily hadn't expected. Most people saw only a withdrawn girl, but beneath the surface was a child desperate for connection and safety. The loneliness was suffocating, but the pressure to keep up appearances was even heavier. School, with its busy hallways and loud voices, felt overwhelming. Yet in that quiet corner, with Maya's gentle presence and a bottle of bubbles, Lily found a moment of peace. It wasn't just distraction. It was the first flicker of hope after a long night of darkness. The janitor's kindness was a lifeline, something tangible amidst the invisible struggles she carried. What Maya didn't know yet was that the man watching silently from the shadows was Lily's father, Thomas Whitmore, a billionaire whose power and wealth set him worlds apart from the school's janitor. Thomas was a man known for his sharp mind and distant demeanor, rarely seen smiling, often wrapped in the weight of responsibility that came with his fortune. Yet here, in this unexpected moment, he was simply a father watching his daughter find a sliver of joy in a place she had never truly felt safe. Thomas had spent years trying to reach Lily through every means money could buy. Special schools, tutors, therapists, lavish vacations. Nothing had worked. The silence between them grew heavier with time, an invisible wall neither could breach. Yet, it was a janitor's quiet act of compassion, far from the boardrooms and luxury, that stirred something in him. Watching Maya and Lily, he saw what his money had never been able to buy: trust, warmth, and a genuine connection. This revelation hit Thomas harder than any business setback ever could. He realized that no amount of wealth could replace the simple, honest kindness that was unfolding right in front of him. It was a moment of humility for a man who had always believed success meant control. But here, control was irrelevant. What mattered was heart, something that could not be bought or commanded, only earned through respect and empathy. Lily's story was a testament to the power of unseen struggles, how pain often hides behind silence, and how true healing requires more than money or status. Maya's role as a janitor, often overlooked, suddenly became central to something much bigger than cleaning floors. It was about human dignity, about being present for someone when the world turns its back. And it was about recognizing that sometimes the most valuable people in our lives are those we least expect. Thomas, still standing in the shadows, felt a new kind of hope. Watching the bubbles float and the smile on Lily's face, he understood that the story wasn't just about loss and silence anymore. It was about a new chapter, one that started with small acts of kindness and the courage to be vulnerable. This was a lesson money couldn't teach, but life demanded he learn, for the sake of his daughter and himself. And so, as the janitor and the girl shared this quiet moment, the invisible thread connecting them began to weave a story of redemption, second chances, and the unexpected power of compassion. Little did they know how much this moment would change all their lives. His name was Thomas Whitmore, a name that carried weight far beyond the walls of the school. He was a tech millionaire, known for building a vast empire from scratch, sharp, driven, and undeniably powerful. His influence stretched across industries, and his decisions shaped markets. Yet, despite his success, Thomas remained a figure wrapped in mystery and distance. People in the school whispered his name with a mix of respect and fear, but very few actually knew the man behind the fortune. His presence was commanding, but it never invited warmth. In every hallway, parents and staff recognized him as someone who belonged to a different world, a world of suits, boardrooms, and big deals. No one expected him to be approachable or gentle, and certainly no one had ever seen him smile. His reputation painted him as a man who valued control and achievement over emotion. It was the kind of persona that made him seem untouchable, a distant star shining far above the everyday lives of those around him. The image of Thomas Whitmore was one of power, yes, but also of solitude. Most people imagined that Thomas's life was flawless because of his wealth. But behind the polished surface, there was a loneliness that no amount of money could fill. The school's community barely glimpsed his private struggles, the challenges of being a father trying to reach a daughter who had retreated into silence. His success came with a price, a distance that grew wider with every business conquest. Yet, his presence in the hallway that day marked a turning point, a moment where the barriers between power and vulnerability started to blur. Until that moment in the school hallway, where Maya's kindness broke through his carefully constructed walls. Seeing his daughter laugh, even if just briefly, softened something deep inside him. A softness that hadn't been seen or felt in years. It was as if the bubbles themselves carried away the cold armor of detachment he'd worn for so long. That small, unexpected smile from Lily changed everything. It reminded him that behind the title of millionaire and the weight of responsibility, he was still a father craving connection. Thomas stood there, watching the scene unfold with a mix of surprise and something like awe. He realized that no deal or strategy could create the kind of joy he saw on his daughter's face. The power he held over industries suddenly felt hollow compared to the simple beauty of a child's laughter. For once, the walls of distance crumbled, and the man known for being distant became just a father, watching, feeling, hoping. It was a rare glimpse of humanity in a life ruled by business. The contrast between Thomas's public image and this private moment couldn't have been starker. To the world, he was untouchable, a titan of industry. But here, in this quiet school hallway, he was a man humbled by the power of kindness and the fragile strength of a child. It was a reminder that real influence isn't measured by wealth, but by moments of connection and compassion. This shift in Thomas's heart was subtle but profound, and it promised a new chapter in their lives. In that hallway, where so much had gone unnoticed before, the story of Thomas Whitmore was changing. From a powerful, distant figure to a father awakening to the true meaning of presence and love. And though no one else saw the change yet, it was the beginning of a transformation that would reach far beyond the school walls and into the heart of a family desperate for healing. That day, the billionaire smile wasn't just a fleeting expression. It was the start of something unexpected, something real, and something deeply human. For years, Thomas Whitmore had searched for a way to reach his daughter Lily's heart. He spared no expense: tutors who promised breakthroughs, therapists with impressive credentials, toys designed to spark joy, and trips to exotic places meant to distract and delight. Each attempt was like casting a net into the deep ocean, hoping to catch even a glimpse of the girl he barely knew anymore. Yet, despite all the money and effort, nothing truly got through to her. The silence at home remained thick, unbroken by any of his grand gestures or costly solutions. It's a struggle many can relate to, when all the resources in the world seem powerless against the pain inside a loved one. Thomas's story reminds us that wealth doesn't guarantee happiness or connection. It highlights a truth that often goes unspoken. Sometimes, what people need isn't the biggest, most expensive fix, but a simple moment of genuine human kindness. That realization hit Thomas harder than any business failure ever could, because it wasn't just about money. It was about missing the heart of what his daughter needed all along. Enter Maya, a janitor whose job made her invisible to most, but whose heart was anything but unnoticed in that quiet hallway. She didn't bring tutors or therapists, nor did she offer flashy distractions. Instead, she pulled out a small bottle of soap bubbles, something she kept for her own son on tough days. It was a humble gesture, one that seemed almost trivial compared to Thomas's elaborate efforts. But those bubbles held something far more powerful than soap and air. They carried kindness, patience, and the simple joy that Lily had been missing. When Thomas saw Maya's quiet act of compassion, it shook him to the core. It forced him to confront the limits of his wealth and the gaps in his understanding. Here was a woman with no title, no fortune, yet she had reached the part of Lily's heart he couldn't touch. It was a wake-up call that reminded him of what truly matters: the values of humility, respect, and genuine care. This moment of transformation wasn't about money. It was about character and integrity shining through the smallest acts. It's a lesson for all of us. Sometimes the most profound change comes from unexpected places and people we overlook. The janitor's bubbles broke through walls that years of therapy couldn't. It was a breakthrough that money couldn't buy, a surprise that changed everything. Thomas realized that he had been focusing on the wrong things all along. The connection his daughter craved was not something to be purchased, but something to be nurtured with honesty and heart. This scene also reveals the unseen power of compassion in everyday life. Maya's kindness wasn't about grand gestures or recognition. It was about being present when it mattered most. And that presence, quiet and unassuming, carried the weight of redemption. Not just for Lily, but for Thomas and Maya as well. The bubbles floated gently but left a ripple effect that touched all their lives, proving that true transformation often begins with something simple and heartfelt. For Thomas, this was more than a moment of shock. It was a turning point that invited him to reevaluate his priorities. He had chased success at the expense of connection, but now he understood that the heart of his daughter's healing wasn't in expensive treatments, but in the warmth of human kindness. It was a humbling truth that challenged everything he believed about power and control. As the bubbles popped softly, dissolving into the air, they symbolized the breaking down of walls built by silence and distance. The invisible barriers between father and daughter were starting to crumble, thanks to a janitor who dared to care in a way no one else had. It was a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts carry the greatest impact, and that transformation often begins in the most unexpected ways. And as this realization settled in Thomas's heart, the ripple of change was only just beginning. Maya finished her shift just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the long day weighing heavily on her shoulders. Her body ached from hours of bending, sweeping, and wiping, yet her heart felt lighter, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. To the outside world, she was just another janitor leaving the school, invisible as always. She walked the quiet streets back to her modest apartment, unaware that the small moments she shared with Lily had already begun to ripple far beyond the school walls. Her tired steps carried the invisible burden of a hard life, but also an unspoken hope. At home, the reality of her day-to-day struggles returned with full force. Her son was still sick, the soft fever burning under his skin making her worry anew. Maya carefully checked on him, smoothing the damp hair from his forehead and whispering a quiet prayer for his healing. She reheated the leftover pasta from the night before, knowing it was all they had for dinner. Money was tight, bills were piling up, and the rent due date was a looming shadow she feared more than anything. Yet despite the pressure, she held onto her dignity and resilience, refusing to let despair take root. This was the rhythm of her life. Long days and longer nights filled with sacrifices she rarely spoke about. Maya wasn't just a janitor. She was a single mother battling the odds every single day. Her humility and strength were the silent forces keeping her family afloat. Even when exhaustion threatened to overtake her, she found moments to smile and show kindness, whether to her son or the children she passed in the school halls. This quiet compassion was her secret weapon, a testament to her unwavering character and values. Unbeknownst to Maya, the day she thought was just another long shift was about to take a surprising turn. As she tucked her son in and prepared to rest, the phone rang, breaking the stillness of the evening. The school was calling, a rare interruption that immediately sparked a mix of anxiety and curiosity in her heart. Was something wrong? Had she made a mistake? Or was this a chance for something she hadn't dared to hope for? Her mind raced with possibilities as she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. The unexpected call carried a message that would change the course of her life. The school principal wanted to speak with her after her next shift. No details, just an invitation that felt both mysterious and significant. Maya couldn't imagine what it meant, but deep down, she sensed that the invisible walls around her world were beginning to crack. This moment captured the tension between Maya's ordinary struggles and the extraordinary change on the horizon. It was a reminder that even in the hardest lives, surprises can come when you least expect them. Her quiet strength and everyday sacrifices had not gone unnoticed, even if she hadn't realized it yet. The unseen kindness she offered had planted seeds that were ready to grow into something new. As she hung up the phone, Maya felt a flicker of hope mixed with the familiar uncertainty. The path ahead was unknown, but for the first time in a long while, she sensed that her life might be about to shift. The challenges of unpaid bills and sleepless nights were still there, but now they shared space with the possibility of recognition and change. It was a second chance, wrapped in the ordinary, waiting to be discovered. And so, Maya prepared for tomorrow, unaware that her small act of compassion had already reached the ears of a powerful man. A man who would soon step out of the shadows to rewrite the story of their lives. The night settled around her, calm but full of promise, as the stage was quietly set for what was to come. The next day, as Maya finished her shift, the principal approached her with a serious look and asked if she could stay a little longer after work. Maya's heart sank instantly, her mind raced with worries. Had she accidentally broken a rule? Was someone unhappy with her? After all, in her world, unexpected meetings with authority figures rarely meant good news. She nodded quietly, trying to hide the nervous flutter in her chest. The weight of her everyday struggles made this moment feel heavier than it really was. but she was too tired and wary to imagine anything else. As she waited outside the principal's office, Maya's thoughts swirled like the soap bubbles she'd used the day before. Fragile, fleeting, and full of uncertainty. She wondered if this was about the girl she'd comforted, or maybe about something she hadn't even noticed. The school corridors seemed colder now, the walls closing in a little tighter. When the door finally opened, she took a deep breath and stepped inside, preparing herself for whatever was coming. What happened next would change everything she thought she knew about her place in the world. Inside the office stood Thomas Whitmore, the same man Maya had seen silently watching in the hallway. The billionaire, distant and powerful, was now standing face to face with her, a look of genuine curiosity in his eyes. Maya blinked, surprised to see him there, unsure of what to say or do. The contrast between the man's polished appearance and her worn uniform felt stark. Yet there was a quiet respect in his gaze. It wasn't intimidating. It was something new, something unexpected that caught her off guard. Thomas didn't launch into a speech or offer money immediately. Instead, he asked one simple question: "What's your name?" The words hung in the air, gentle but profound. It was as if in that moment, he was recognizing Maya not just as a janitor or a background figure, but as a person with a story, a heart, and a name. The simplicity of his question carried a weight Maya hadn't anticipated, breaking through the invisible walls that often separated people by status or role. Maya felt a rush of emotions: surprise, hesitation, and a cautious hope. It was rare for someone like Thomas to acknowledge her existence, let alone speak directly to her. His question wasn't just about learning her name. It was an invitation into a new chapter, a recognition of her value beyond her job title. In that quiet exchange, the barriers between them started to crumble, opening a door to something more human and real. The moment captured a deeper truth about connection and respect. How sometimes the most powerful gestures come not from grand speeches but from simple acts of acknowledgement. Maya's journey from invisibility to being truly seen was beginning, and it was sparked by this unexpected meeting. It was a reminder that every person, no matter their role, carries dignity and deserves to be recognized for their character and kindness. For Thomas, this was a moment of humility and awakening too. Asking Maya her name was his way of stepping away from the business persona and into the role of a father seeking understanding and healing. It showed a side of him that few ever witnessed, a man willing to be vulnerable and open to change. This simple question was a bridge between two worlds, connecting wealth and struggle, distance and compassion. As Maya answered, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside, the air seemed to shift. This was no longer just a meeting, it was the start of a story about transformation, respect, and second chances. Both knew that what lay ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was real, and sometimes that's all it takes for everything to begin to change. Thomas didn't start with promises of money or grand gestures. Instead, he simply looked at Maya with a quiet gratitude that surprised her. He thanked her for what she had already done, something he couldn't put a price on. In that moment, his appreciation felt honest and deep, not like the usual transactions she'd seen in her life. This simple act of saying, "Thank you," was powerful, breaking through the usual barriers of status and expectation. It reminded Maya that sometimes, recognition alone can be a lifeline, especially when it comes from someone so distant from her world. Then Thomas asked something unexpected. Would she consider spending time with Lily, not as an employee or a paid tutor, but as a friend, a helper, someone who could simply be there? The offer was unusual because it wasn't about money or status. It was about trust and connection. It was a recognition of Maya's character and kindness, qualities that no amount of money could replace. For Maya, who was used to being overlooked and undervalued, this invitation felt like a lifeline, a chance to be part of something meaningful. Maya's confusion was natural. This wasn't a typical offer, and it came from a man whose world seemed so far removed from hers. She wasn't sure what to expect or how to respond. Was this a trick, a test, or maybe a chance for something better? Her heart wavered between hope and caution, but despite her uncertainty, she said yes. It was a decision born from a mix of curiosity and a deep desire to make a difference, both for Lily and herself. This moment was more than just an offer. It was a turning point. Maya was being seen not for her job title, but for the kindness she carried inside. It was an invitation to step into a new role, one that valued her not just as a worker, but as a person with a heart capable of healing and connection. It showed that sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the simplest requests, to be present, to care, and to share your time. Thomas's approach reflected a deeper understanding that relationships aren't built on money or power, but on trust and genuine presence. He wasn't asking Maya to fix everything. He was asking her to be there, to be a steady and compassionate presence in Lily's life. This subtle shift from transactional to relational was key, highlighting the importance of humility and respect in building real bonds. Maya's agreement wasn't just about helping Lily, it was about accepting a second chance for herself and her son. It was a step towards something new, away from the hardships that had defined her days. This offer carried the promise of transformation, not just for Lily, but for Maya as well. It was a chance to rewrite their stories, to find dignity and hope where before there had been only struggle. The invitation also reminded us how sometimes those we least expect hold the greatest power to change lives. Maya's quiet strength, her compassion in the hallways, had opened a door no amount of money could buy. It showed that true value lies in character and heart, not titles or bank accounts. Her yes was a quiet rebellion against invisibility, a step into a future filled with possibility. As she accepted, the invisible thread that connected Maya, Lily, and Thomas began to strengthen. This was the beginning of a journey marked by kindness, respect, and unexpected friendships. And though Maya didn't fully understand what lay ahead, she knew this moment mattered. A simple yes that carried the weight of hope and transformation. Slowly but surely, Lily began to change. The quiet girl who once sat alone, hugging her knees in silence, started to speak more and more each day. Her voice was soft at first, hesitant, like a butterfly testing its wings before taking flight. With Maya's gentle presence and the simple comfort of those soap bubbles, Lily's world opened just a little wider. Her smiles became more frequent, lighting up the school halls in ways no tutor or expensive therapy ever could. This wasn't just a change. It was a transformation rooted in trust and kindness. Each morning, Lily eagerly awaited Maya's arrival, looking forward to the moments they shared away from the pressures of school and the weight of her silent grief. Maya, once invisible to most, became the center of Lily's new world, a trusted friend, a calm presence amid chaos. This bond wasn't born of obligation but of genuine care, and it made all the difference. It showed how simple human connection can fill the gaps that money and power leave behind, proving that compassion is a force far stronger than we often realize. One day, the moment came that no one expected. Lily, with all the innocence and bravery of a child who had found safety, called Maya Mama Maya. Those two words carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken feelings. It was an embrace of trust, a heartfelt recognition that Maya was more than just a janitor or a helper. She was family. For Maya, this was a victory not measured in dollars but in dignity and love. It was the kind of reward that touches the soul and changes lives forever. Thomas Whitmore, watching from the sidelines, saw something he hadn't witnessed in years. Hope. That rare and fragile spark that had been missing from his daughter's eyes was now burning bright. It was a hope that promised healing, connection, and a future where love was stronger than loss. For Thomas, this was a revelation that challenged everything he thought he knew about success and happiness. The power he held in his hands suddenly felt lighter, replaced by a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. This shift wasn't just about Lily. It was about the whole family redefining what it meant to matter. Maya's role had expanded beyond her job title to someone irreplaceable, a symbol of kindness and resilience that touched both father and daughter. It was a reminder that in life, sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who hold the greatest power to heal and transform. Maya's journey from janitor to someone that truly matters inspired those around her to rethink their own assumptions about worth and value. The story also speaks to the importance of second chances and the unexpected ways they come to us. Maya's willingness to say yes, to be present without judgment, gave Lily a chance to reclaim her voice and her smile. It was a lesson in how acts of compassion, no matter how small, can create ripples that change lives. And for Maya, it was proof that character and heart are the true currencies that bring lasting change. Thomas's hope was not just for his daughter, but for himself as well. Watching Lily's transformation through Maya's eyes gave him a new perspective on what it means to be a father, a man, and a human being. It reminded him that redemption isn't about money or status. It's about being seen, understood, and loved. And in that realization, Thomas found a path forward that he hadn't known existed before. As Lily called Maya Mama Maya, the invisible threads of family, love, and respect were woven tighter. It was a moment that symbolized the power of kindness to break down walls and build new bridges. And in the quiet of that connection, all three of them, father, daughter, and janitor, found something precious. A shared hope for tomorrow that none of them had dared to imagine before. One evening, Thomas surprised Maya by inviting her and her son to dinner at a quiet, cozy restaurant. Not far from the city's buzz, but just enough to feel like stepping into a different world. The invitation was unexpected, and Maya felt a mix of nervousness and curiosity. Sitting across from Thomas, she saw a side of him rarely shown to others. A man who, beneath his billionaire status, carried a sincere desire to make things right. This dinner wasn't just a meal. It was the start of a new chapter that neither of them could have anticipated. During their conversation, Thomas expressed his gratitude in ways words could barely capture. But then he shifted the discussion toward something more concrete, an offer for Maya. He wanted her to step out of the janitor's role and into something far more meaningful. As part of Lily's care team, this wasn't just a job promotion. It was an acknowledgement of Maya's impact and importance. With better pay, flexible hours, and benefits, Thomas was offering Maya dignity, stability, and a chance to build a better future for her family. Maya's heart raced, but so did her doubts. This kind of opportunity was unlike anything she'd ever imagined, and it came with uncertainty. Could she accept something so different from her life so far? Would she be able to balance this new role with the struggles she faced daily? Most of all, she worried about her son, his needs, his health, and what this change would mean for him. Despite the hesitation, Maya's love and commitment to her child pushed her forward. Saying yes wasn't just about accepting a new job. It was about embracing a second chance, a fresh start after years of hard work and sacrifice. Maya knew this decision would ripple through her life, challenging her but also offering hope. It was a moment where the past's hardships met the future's promise, and she chose to trust that promise. For her son, for herself, and for the quiet strength she had carried all along. Thomas's offer reflected more than generosity. It showed a transformation in how he viewed people and what he valued. No longer was he just a distant billionaire focused on results and profit. He was a father learning the true meaning of compassion and support. Recognizing Maya's role in Lily's life as essential meant acknowledging the power of character and heart over status and money. This offer symbolized a bridge between two very different worlds, built on respect and shared purpose. This new beginning also reminded us that sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as challenges. Maya's hesitation was natural, but it didn't stop her from stepping into a role where she could make a bigger difference. It was a lesson in courage, the kind that comes from love and the willingness to grow despite fear. She understood that change wasn't easy, but it was necessary, especially when it meant a better life for her family. For Maya, this shift wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal. It was a chance to redefine her identity, moving from invisibility to being someone who truly mattered. It was about showing her son that no matter where you start, your character and values can open doors to places you never dreamed of. Her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, humility, and kindness in transforming even the toughest situations. As Maya accepted Thomas's offer, the future felt uncertain but bright. The path ahead wasn't without obstacles, but it was filled with possibility. This new beginning marked a turning point, not just in her life, but in the story of a little girl named Lily and a father learning how to be present. Together, they were stepping into a future shaped by compassion, respect, and the promise of redemption. And just as one door closes, Another opens, leading them all toward a tomorrow filled with hope and new chances. At first glance, it might seem like the soap bubbles were just a simple distraction, a fleeting moment of joy for a girl in crisis. But the truth runs much deeper. Those bubbles symbolize something far more powerful. Kindness given freely, without expectation or agenda. Maya's small act was a beacon of compassion in a world that often overlooks the unseen. It wasn't about fixing everything with grand gestures, but about showing up with genuine heart and humility. That's a lesson that many miss in the rush of life. True change starts with simple, honest acts of care. Lily needed more than just bubbles. She needed safety, trust, and someone who could hold space for her pain without judgment. Maya became that person. Her presence offered Lily a fragile but vital shelter from the storm of loss and silence that had filled her life since her mother passed. This connection was a quiet revolution, built on respect and understanding rather than wealth or status. It's a reminder that what the world often overlooks, the janitor, the helper, the quiet presence, can be the very thing that changes a life. Then there was Thomas, a man whose fortune could buy nearly anything, yet couldn't purchase the one thing he truly needed: connection with his daughter. Watching Maya care for Lily, he saw a reflection of what money couldn't provide: a heart that listens, a hand that comforts, and a spirit that heals. It shook him to his core, breaking down the walls of power and distance he had built around himself. Sometimes it takes losing sight of what really matters to see it clearly again, and for Thomas, this was his moment of reckoning. This story isn't just about soap bubbles or a janitor's kindness. It's about the unseen threads that connect us all: character, integrity, and the capacity to give without expecting anything in return. It's a powerful reminder that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in the values we live by and the lives we touch. Maya's simple gesture sparked a chain reaction of transformation that reached far beyond the school hallways. The lesson here is timeless. Kindness has a ripple effect. One small act can create waves of change that affect not only those directly involved but also everyone around them. It teaches us to look beyond appearances and titles and to recognize the dignity in every person we meet. This story invites us to consider what we might be overlooking in our own lives: the quiet heroes who make a difference without fanfare or recognition. For Maya, Lily, and Thomas, the bubbles were a starting point, a symbol of hope, healing, and second chances. It showed that sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. And in that meaning lies the power to transform pain into possibility, silence into conversation, and strangers into family. It's a reminder that when we give from the heart, the world changes around us. So next time you see something as simple as soap bubbles floating in the air, remember what they might really represent: a chance to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. And that, more than anything else, is what changes everything. Sometimes healing doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with grand speeches or dramatic music. It comes quietly, like soap bubbles drifting through a hallway. It comes in a janitor's gentle voice, a kind gesture from someone no one expected. It comes through people most of the world walks past without a second glance. Maya didn't wake up that day planning to change a life. She was just doing her job, cleaning floors, picking up after others. But when she saw pain in a child's eyes, she didn't ignore it. She didn't check the time, or say, "Not my problem." She simply followed what her heart whispered: "Be kind." And in that one small moment, everything changed. For Lily, for Thomas, for Maya herself. Because healing doesn't always look like a miracle. Sometimes, it looks like a woman in a janitor's uniform, blowing bubbles for a little girl who forgot how to smile. It's the unnoticed people who carry the most powerful light. And it's the quiet acts of love that echo the loudest. If the story touched your heart, share it. There are thousands of Mayas out there, quiet heroes in uniforms most of us never see. They sweep the floors, change the trash, lock up after hours. But sometimes, they're the ones who unlock something we lost, like trust or hope. Let's honor them. Let's notice them. And if you believe small acts still matter, if you believe kindness can rewrite someone's story, then subscribe, because here we tell stories that matter. Stories that remind us, it's not the job title that defines someone, it's the heart behind it.